Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Mokwariola. These are crucial times for a democratic process in Africa, where the pendulum of political discourse continues to swing from tweets to streets, with governance largely seen as deficient and leadership close to inefficient. From Rwanda to Uganda, Burundi to Equatorial Guinea, Africa parades a group of sit-tight rulers, not forgetting Cameroon, where Paul Biya has been president for 36 years and now wants a 7th term in office. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on political developments in Cameroon, where presidential elections have just held? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. We take a report, and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
The presidential election in Cameroon has been described as largely peaceful and transparent, but some candidates who stood against incumbent President Paul Biya have already warned of electoral fraud. In 2011, Biya won 78% of the votes in an election the United States says was marked by irregularities. The odds are still against the opposition, including the main candidate of the Social Democratic Front.
Écoutez, je crois que c'est engagement tous.
Listen, I think it's time for everyone to be fully engaged. And you can see the interest is there. And Cameroonians want change. And we are not mistaken.
Universe Party candidate Gabriel Libby, who has a strong following among the country's youth, published a video on Facebook before the close of the polls, accusing Biya of trying to fix the results.
Let us change the 36-year leadership of a regime that has nothing new to offer. We are in the hands of those who can no longer lead us. It is the beginning of the end of 36 years today. Cameroonians are killing each other. Cameroonians are shooting on each other. Cameroonians will not be duped. They know, and you too know it, that the state is going from bad to worse.
Victory for the 85-year-old Paul Biya, who has ruled for 36 years, will give him a 7th term, bucking a move by some African nations to install presidential term limits. The only current African president to have ruled longer is Equatorial Guinea's Teodoro Mbasogo. Did it end well?
Well, before we get into the discussion of the day, let's update you on some of top news stories around Africa. The UN Security Council has called on the Democratic Republic of Congo's Electoral Commission to open dialogue on the use of voting machines for December elections. Gabonese President Ali Bongo's ruling party has won a legislative election by a landslide in the first round, according to state reports. The oil-rich West African country voted on Saturday in long-delayed legislative and municipal polls. In Cameroon, opposition candidate Maurice Kamto has declared himself the winner of Sunday's presidential election, despite a government warning not to announce any unofficial results. And now joining me to look at political developments in Cameroon, I have with me in the studio Lester Wilcox, a political analyst and social commentator. And on Skype, I have Dr. John Mbaku, senior researcher, Brookings Institution and lecturer, Weber State University, Utah, United States. Professor Julius Amin, Department of History, the University of Dayton, Ohio, United States. And Yannick Fornick, editor, Green Vision newspaper and member Commonwealth Journalists Association in Cameroon. Good to have you all on the program at this time.
It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let me begin with you now, Yannick, who is in Cameroon. Give us a heads up of how things have turned out in the elections held yesterday.
Well, I think that 24 hours after the elections, that the polls were closed, a lot has been happening. We started seeing a lot happening last night at around 8 p.m. when the Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization came to the public to give a stern warning that no other body is authorized or has the competency to declare elections, either trends or the full results other than the Constitutional Council, that's the constituted body. And that seems not to have augured way to many Cameroonians, including one of the main opposition party, the presidential candidate, the president of Maurice Kamto, who today around 3:30 p.m. Declared himself the winner and said the incumbent president Paul Biya should give way for a smooth transition to him. So that is still animating a lot of discussion around the country. Right as I am talking to you, the Secretary General of the ruling CPDM party, that's the Cameroon People Democratic Party movement, the CPDM party, is holding a press.
Oh, there seems to having some connection issues with Yannick Fanik. Well, let me come to you now, Julius. I mean, knowing that as Cameroonians have been talking about they want change, and they've been with Paul Biya for, 7 times. This is 7th time now, if at all he's given the chance. What do you think is the average perception on Paul Biya to the average Cameroonian?
Well, I was in Cameroon last June, and I talked to a lot of people, and I talked to a lot of people yesterday over the phone about how the elections are taking place in Anglophone Cameroon. I saw the streets. The people I talked to said basically there was nothing happening. So the bulk of the people in English-speaking Cameroon did not participate in this election. And again, it's really unfortunate that it looks as if this was an election designed to move well, but based on the structure, based on what was happening, most people in English-speaking Cameroon did not participate in this election. Many wanted to, but because of the security problems, right, they did not participate in this election. So I cannot understand how this will count as a valid election. And I've argued before that just because people go to the polls to vote doesn't mean that democracy has taken place. Voting is basically just part of that democratic process. And Paul Biya knew exactly that this was a situation that is a security problems. Many people will not be participating in the vote in English-speaking Cameroon. And I talked to friends in French-speaking Cameroon, some of them because they could not get their ID on time. The processing of the identification cards, it's very, very long. Many, again, were unable to register to vote because they could not get the identification on time. But again, as I said, without taking too much time, there's a larger... Can you hear me? Yes. That I said, but there's a larger issue here in terms of, clearly, I mean, Paul Biya is looking for a second term. But when I looked at the campaign and everything, and some of those who participated, few could articulate clearly what direction they're going to move the country. And this remains a fundamental problem for the people.
And talking about this fundamental problem, John Mbaku, looking at this case now as a Cameroonian, do you think perhaps the next candidate can overtake a president that has been there for 36 years now? We have about 7 candidates vying for the top job. Do you think they stand a chance?
I think that the problem you have with the election is that it's evidence in the fact that the Minister of Territorial Administration has already come up and stated that no one should talk about the election results, which I think is a ridiculous idea, because I think what they are probably planning to do is to have the Constitutional Council announce a winner that they support, who would most likely be Mr. Biya, and no one would be able to come out and make any legitimate claim against that kind of announcement, because what they probably would do would be to not allow any other, like an external group, to look at the election results. So if, as the Minister of Territorial Administration is saying, chances are Mr. Biya will be returned to power and the country would continue to suffer from the kind of crisis that they've had so far. So I'm not sure that this election, unless they allow external agencies to look into it, will be considered by a lot of Cameroonians to have been a legitimate and a fair and competitive election, especially considering the fact that most of the people in the two Anglophone regions were not able to participate.
Wow. Now, Alester, from his own point of view now, definitely Cameroon is more or less in a dire situation because we do not know where the top is going to be from the bottom. But from your own analysis, where do you see all of this in the mix? Do you think Cameroon can be better off after this election?
Thank you. My position could not be different from what my other colleagues have said. And I've made it clear on several fora, Cameroon is a very bad example of what a democratic society should look like. It's not, I mean, it's like, apart from the West African region in Africa, maybe the Southern African region, this East and Central African region has remained comatose in terms of political movement. It's only in West Africa that you see some changes, some sound democratic principle coming to play. For instance, we saw that play, we've seen that in Ghana. Ghana has been stable democratically. We saw that play out in Gambia. We saw that play out in Senegal. It's playing out in Nigeria because, I mean, we saw for the first time in 2015 an opposition party win the election. And, you know, so those, but that cannot be said about the Central and the Eastern African region. Paul Biya, that was the Cameroon, is a very bad example. There's not going to be any discussion about it. Paul Biya, the whole ground has been made for him to continue because you can't be holding an election where a big majority of the country is under such tumult condition like the Anglophone area. And we've heard now that many of them could not vote because they were not able to go through the process. And as far as Biya is concerned, he doesn't give a damn. His own is to renew his mandate just for the formality. And it's sad for Africa because if a man has been in, has claimed to have won election 6 times, going for the 7th time at 85, what else does he have to offer the people? And who is going to be paying for it? Is it Cameroonian? Is every Cameroonian on the street? Because certainly there is no fresh life being infused into the country. And now even the opposition are not helping themselves. How can you want to unseat a demagogue, and you are splitting yourself into 7 different candidates? Or probably, maybe the president, that's Paul Biya, or its associate, may have lined up these people in order to find some credibility. But if it is where the people are really, really serious in unseating a demagogue like Paul Biya, I think they will have just formed a united front with one candidate and to give him a good run and being sure that you don't run foul of the law. Already, some of them are now running foul of the law. Because already it is said nobody should declare results. And then somebody has gone ahead to declare results. What is he calling for? Anarchy. Tomorrow, Paul Biya doesn't care. Cameroon is like a police state. He will be picked up, locked up, and that is the end of the matter. You know, so they also need to help themselves.
Right.
Just as the world wants to help them, others want to speak in their favor, they also need to come together and help themselves.
Right,
but
that's all your thought now. We need to go on a very quick break. You're watching Africa Today, and we've been looking at political developments in Cameroon, where Paul Biya is seeking a 7th term in office after 36 years.
And being sure that you don't run foul of the law. Already, some of them are now running foul of the law. Because already it is said nobody should declare results. And then somebody has gone ahead to declare results. What is he calling for? Anarchy. Tomorrow, Paul Biya doesn't care. Cameroon is like a police state. He will be picked up, locked up, and that is the end of the matter. You know, so they also need to help themselves.
Right.
Just as the world wants to help them, others want to speak in their favor, they also need to come together and help themselves.
Right,
but
that's all your thought now. We need to go on a very quick break. You're watching Africa Today, and we've been looking at political developments in Cameroon, where Paul Biya is seeking a 7th term in office after 36 years. Welcome back. Lingering political unrest in Cameroon since 2016 have seen hundreds of civilians being killed and about 250,000 displaced as the government battles separatist insurgency in the Anglophone region. A situation that has continued to undermine the country's electoral process and the 2018 poll, where 6.5 million voters registered to participate, with the majority being the young population. Now, let me quickly come to you now, Yannick Phonic, even though we had an issue earlier with your connection, but I hope it's really resolved. Looking at this issue pertaining to the Francophone, Anglophone region now, how do you think any of the candidates, even Paul Biya, can address this issue where the situation seems to be, quite out of control at the moment?
Well, I want to make this very clear. The stance of the incumbent president, Paul Biya, has not changed with regards to the Anglophone crisis. He has always resorted to using repressive measures, that is, using the military might to solve the crisis, categorizing those who are grieving to be secessionists or separatists, or to a greater extent terrorists. And so even as I am speaking to you at the moment, we have a military deployment all over, and there's been mass exodus all through the two Anglophone regions in the country. So the stance of President Paul Biya has not changed. And even in his manifesto, in the various programs he enlisted, he did not indicate anywhere that he's going to alter his initial stance on how to solve the crisis. But on the other hand, the 8 other, or cut it short to the 7 other opposition political parties, seem to have brought in some fresh impetus as to how to solve the crisis. For instance, the person who is already claiming victory as to the presidential stool, Maurice Kamto, indicated that he is first of all going to rally, call for a ceasefire between the military and the pro-independence fighters, and then call for a national confab to seek way on how to change, to alter the form of the state, which has been the bone of contention since 2016. And that is going to be through a referendum where Cameroonians are going to decide whether they will want to have a decentralized unitary state, or they're going to have a federal state, or whatever state they will want to have that will not alter the territorial integrity of the country. So that seems to be a little bit good for a majority of Anglophones who are clamoring for the Anglo-Saxon system of operation not to be assimilated to the Francophone system.
All right, point taken there, Yannick. Let me quickly come to Julius now. Julius, from his position taken now, do you think perhaps Cameroon will be better off?
Well, part of the problem, again, as I said, I was in Cameroon in June, and irrespective of who wins the election, the fundamental issues must be addressed. The problems began with, as a result of economic exclusion, as a result of the absence of basic needs, irrespective of what form of government takes place. Once the people continue to go without basic needs, once the people continue to go without ability to go to school, once the people continue to go without employment, these issues are serious. And I'd written elsewhere that one of the things Biya had to do was to go out and address the population. Biya was absent completely. When I was in Cameroon in June, a lot of people told me in English-speaking Cameroon, they told me that they're waiting to hear from Paul Biya. What is he going to do about this? And that was unbelievable. It was stunning that he would not see the problem serious enough to get on television and talk to the people directly. I have heard you. We will solve these problems. These are the issues which must be addressed. So again, my position is that while some of the political candidates, talked about the issues, I was a little disappointed that there was no clear-cut direction as to what will be done these are serious economic issues. These are serious issues of basic needs. How will people put food on the table? How would university graduates get jobs? How would people pay for medical care for their kids? And for too long, the English-speaking section has been neglected in this respect. The infrastructure is crumbling everywhere you turn around. So these are fundamental issues. I hear the political issues about federalism. These are important issues, but at the end of the day, this is about basic needs.
Right. Now, let me quickly come to John Baku. Yeah, point taken, Julius. Let me quickly come to you, John Baku. Do you think now the average Kenyan is ready for a young leader, even though from opinion taken around in Cameroon, there's been some beliefs that Paul Biya holds a larger, will I say, a larger perception that he has a grip on the people or on the country. He can govern better than the young ones. Do you think perhaps the average Cameroonian is ready for a young leader this time around?
Well, I think the thing that Cameroonians want is new ideas. I think the issue of age is not really relevant. What is important is that people in Biya's age group no longer have any more ideas to give the people of Cameroon. I think personally they've come to the end of their useful lives as politicians. And so what Cameroonians need today are new ideas. They need people who are not afraid to listen to the Cameroonians. I think the problem you have in Cameroon is very similar to what you have in countries like Uganda, that the people in government are afraid to listen to young people, tell them about how those young people want themselves to be governed. So I think the most important thing in Cameroon is that no matter who becomes president after this election takes place, it must be someone who's willing to sit down and listen to people and do so without any preconditions. I think there is a problem here, the idea that if Cameroonians are going to sit together and talk about their future, there must not be any probability that the country will be divided. I don't understand why that should be. If I'm the president of Cameroon today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and allow Cameroonians to talk to me and tell me what they want. If some people in the Anglophone part want to leave, then it would be incumbent upon me as the leader of the country to prove to them that leaving is a bad idea, not by force, but by reason, by telling them that, look, and as an economist, I can give you a lot of good reasons why leaving is a bad idea. Nobody has been able to discuss those things. So I think that the next president of Cameroon should be someone who is willing to sit down and listen to people, but listen to them without giving them any preconditions. Because most of those people in Boya, in Bamenda, and places like that in Garawa, they have very good ideas about how they want the country to be governed. But none of them has ever been consulted. Nobody has ever listened to them, because governments often think that because someone doesn't have a PhD, because someone doesn't have a law degree, he doesn't know anything about governance, which is not true. Listen to the people, and that is how you govern, and that's how you govern well.
Right, point taken there. John Baku, closing moments now. Alester, where do you see this headed?
Well, there is still the cloud is still very dark in the horizon, politically for Cameroon, both economically and politically. And like the journalist in Cameroon has said, Paul Biya, at his age, is not having anything new to offer the Cameroonians. And he wants to maintain the status quo. He's not going to let in with respect to the crisis in the Anglophone area. He will not ever let in. Rather, he will drag the country further into civil war. And that seems to be what is on the card right now. And already, by a report, we've lost so much people. Who know how many more that will be lost? The election has come. Paul Biya will win. He will strengthen his hold on power. He will descend more heavily on the Anglophone area, and they will also revolt.
But do you see a turnaround?
No, I don't see a turnaround under this concept. Because if there's going to be a turnaround, he will have made that clear, some of those issues clear in his electioneering campaign. This is the time that he will have used to woo the Anglophone people, to let them know that, look, there's a sense of, there's an issue in what they are demanding.
Right.
But that, like the last speaker said, getting them to understand that living, because as far as they are concerned, they want to succeed. I mean, they willingly went into that alliance in 1958, leaving Nigeria and went to that alliance. You don't blame them. this a new generation of people who have seen the evil of that alliance. They want to live it. Again, it takes for a leader who wants to keep his country, who wants to love his people, who wants to be his people. That is why a younger generation of leadership. Paul Biya is expired, he's a demagogue, and there is no way he will turn around today. I mean, the leopard does not change his skin, and you cannot learn how to use your left hand at old age. At this level, at this time, he sees himself as a god of Cameroon, and it's only maybe the Cameroonian people a popular uprising in Cameroon that can unseat him. And that was why I'm not too comfortable with the vast number of candidates that came to this election. They will have a united front, knowing fully well that there is something at stake, that the lives of Cameroon are at stake here, that there's a civil war looming in the offing. How long will you use military to quell such a domestic insurrection? Right. It will never happen just before. And Paul Biya, being a man that he thinks that he's a god and everything, we want to maintain that line. So I do not really see any change of direction. If he wins the election, it will be same of same. Economic deprivation, poor economy, poor infrastructure, and all whatnot. I just remain in power till whatever happens to him. But I think for me, I would just wish Cameroonians very well. But they need to have a united front. These 7 aspirants, as far as I'm concerned, is a wastage of an opportunity to make an impact in the city.
And on that note, let's leave it at that and hope that things turn for the better in Cameroon. I'd like to thank my guests, Alistair Wilcox in the studio, and my other guests on Skype, Julius Amin, Yannick Fonik, and John Mbaku. We appreciate your thoughts on Africa today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elections come and go, and in most parts of Africa, and it is often back to status quo for citizens, with leaders who seem to have an expertise in failing on promises and falling short on expectations. As it stands, Cameroon looks torn between separatist agenda and a democratic process that will either usher in a new era to see Paul Biya clinch a 7th term in office with the nation no longer at ease. And that is our package for tonight. But don't forget to join the conversation as usual on Twitter at TVC News NG. And follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. Until the next one again, I am Esther Mopariola. And always remember, Africa can only get better.